This conference will now be recorded.
Great. So we were just discussing about how do you create an Azure account firstly, because when you're starting to use a service like Azure, which is on the cloud, you need some kind of an account, right? So that's the reason we said we need something known as an Azure account. And to create an Azure account, you need to go to something known as portal.azure.com. To begin with, you need to go to something known as a portal.azure.com. And on the portal.azure.com, you can either use an Outlook account, or if you have a Gmail account, you can just go ahead and sign up for Azure. And as and when you sign up for Azure, what do you get, guys? You get something known as an Azure tenant. That's the first thing that is assigned to you. Something known as a tenant and a tenant ID. So why are you called as a tenant? Is because you're just renting a service and not owning it. You're not buying anything, you're just renting a service on the cloud, right? So that's the reason you are called as a tenant, and you are assigned with something known as a tenant ID, right? So here, this is what a tenant is called, and this is where you will be assigned something known as a tenant ID out here. And we said if there is tenant, it's not sufficient. You will need something else, which is something known as an Azure subscription, right? And we said there are multiple kinds of subscriptions like free trial, like professional direct, enterprise support, pay as you go, and everything. And we are specifically looking at something known as a free trial. And for a free trial subscription, you need a mobile number, you'll need an email ID, and you will need, say, let's say, a credit card, or select banks like only ICICI right now, I think, is supporting debits. So these are the requisite information that you need. And once you give the credit card or debit card information there, you'll go ahead and, Microsoft will go ahead and charge you 2 rupees firstly to check whether the credit or debit is valid. And once the charge is done, you'll be given something known as a free trial subscription out here. So you have a tenant, you will have a subscription. This is where we are. And then we said, how do you do something known as a user management? Like, you will have different multiple users in your organization, not one, two, who wants to use this particular Azure subscription, right? So not everyone can be assigned the role of an owner for the subscription. So that's where we have something known as role based access controls, where you will have different roles that are defined. And we said broadly there are three categories of the roles: owner, contributor, and reader. Now, owner is like an administrator, can do everything, anything with the Azure subscription. So he can add users, delete users, he can see the cost, he can do anything and everything. But whereas coming to a contributor, yes, can do everything an owner can do, apart from adding users. So a contributor cannot go ahead and assign roles. And a reader, he cannot do anything. He can just come down to the subscription, read your resources, what are there inside the subscription. That's it. That's what a reader can do. So this is where we are. This is what we spoke about yesterday. But right now, yes, you are fully convinced that you are moving to the cloud. But when you are moving to the cloud, what kind of a service do you choose? Is it because until now, what you are doing is that you are using something like physical servers, as we discussed in the first class. Till now, we are using physical servers. Like, we had servers sitting in a physical room, and we were using those servers to do whatever we wanted to, like host an application like Ola or something like that. Now that you decided, now you have decided to now go ahead and move to the cloud. Now the thing is that what kind of a service do you want to move into the cloud? So the other way of the question is that what are the services does the cloud offer? Isn't it? So what are the services that does the cloud offer? Now it's just like buying a home. Meaning, when you go, let's say, to a builder and say, you know what, I want to buy a house, the builder will tell you, you know what, I have like three different options available with me. One is that I'll give you just a simple house without any woodwork, nothing. All the woodwork, maintenance, and everything is your responsibility. This is known as an unfurnished house, right? So all the woodwork, everything, I'll just give you a very basic skeleton. That's it. It's called a skeleton, right? When you go to a builder, that's what he'll tell you. So he'll tell you either unfurnished, or the other option is semi furnished. where I'll give you the woodwork, but not the refrigerator, TV, and all is what you will have to buy, which is a semi-furnished flat, right? Where you will have some responsibility to buy the television, to buy the fridge, maintain it, and everything, all that. But all the woodwork and everything is being maintained by the builder, right? And third option is what? Fully furnished, where you don't have to do anything. You just have to move into the house. Every responsibility is now taken care by, let's say, the builder of the house, right? In the same way, when you come to cloud, the cloud provider is also going to ask you what kind of a model do you want. And there are primarily three types of models that the cloud has to offer. They are called IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. These are known as the offerings of the cloud. Like you move to any cloud, AWS, Amazon, or Azure, you move to any cloud out there. Just give me a second, guys. Okay, sorry. Okay, so you're moving to any cloud. These are the services that can offer, that the cloud provider can offer. Now, what does this diagram tell you? Is very simple. So here, let's start from the very beginning. This is known as on-site or on-premises, meaning you are buying a physical server to host your applications, to save your data, and etc. So if you're buying a physical server, all these softwares that are installed on the physical server, all the hardware maintenance that needs to basically you need to take care for of the physical server, everything is your responsibility. So that's what it's telling. The blue is you manage, the red is what the cloud provider manages out here, right? So in on premises or in on site, meaning when you go ahead and buy a physical server, actually all these things, meaning the networking, the storage, all these things what we discussed, right? This is something you will have to manage, meaning whatever softwares you need to install, everything you will need to manage. Now you are someone who doesn't know anything about the cloud and who just wants to, let's say, try out the cloud and wants to move to the very close service that is available to the on premises. And that particular service out here is called infrastructure as a service, where the cloud provider is telling you that, you know what, I will give you the infrastructure, meaning you don't have to worry about networking, you don't have to worry about the storage, you don't have to worry about the maintenance of all those physical servers. That's on me, right? So this is moving to, let's say, something like a semi-furnished house, telling that, okay, fine, a couple of things I'll take care of, like whatever backend infrastructure is there, I'll make sure, meaning infrastructure as in the servers, what are everything that are there in the data center, I will maintain them. I will put all the ACs and everything that we're talking about. I'll maintain all those things. You don't have to worry about it. But on top of the server, meaning you have a physical server right now, on top of the server, whatever you want to install, like let's say you may want to install something like an operating system on the server that is provided to you. Who is responsible to install the operating system? It's you. In this model, known as infrastructure as a service, all the operating systems, all the runtime, the middleware, everything what you need, everything what you basically understand, or everything what you see out here is something that you manage. Meaning, now look at this. Now in the on-premises, you are managing everything. There is no cloud provider's responsibility. There is no concept of cloud at all out here. But when you're now starting to move, let's say, from on-premises to, let's say, the cloud, the first model that you're hitting is known as infrastructure as a service. And when you're looking at infrastructure as a service here, you are managing only these things. Meaning whatever code that you're putting, whatever operating system that you're installing, all these things is something that you are managing. And what is the cloud managing is all that is in red. Telling that, okay, fine, this is virtualization, server, storage, networking, meaning I'll store the server, I'll make sure to maintain the server. But there are a few responsibilities that you need to take. Okay. This is known as an infrastructure as a service. Now, in the market today, this service known as platform as a service is gaining a lot of popularity, because what does the cloud provider do out here is that not only the underlying server, meaning yes, you are getting a server, you're getting a physical server, but that server is rented to you over the internet. That's what the cloud really is about right now. But on top of the server, let's say you want something like a Windows operating system. Who is going to install it? Now it's the cloud provider in this model who's going to install that service to you, meaning who's going to install the operating system to you and give it to you, and he's going to maintain all the backend infrastructure. Meaning not only the server, now the server maintenance is not only the responsibility of the cloud provider, even the operating system and all the softwares that are installed on your server, right? Even the maintenance of that service is the responsibility of the cloud provider. Okay, this is known as a platform as a service model. Now, if I were to compare this to a physical world example, this is like a fully furnished house. You're just moving in, that's it. You have minimal responsibility out here. Finally comes here is a software as a service. Now, in software as a service, do you see any blue there? Nothing. Meaning you don't manage anything. Everything is now taken care by the cloud provider. Even the application is taken care by the cloud provider. One of the example like that is web.outlook.com. Do you have to install anything? No, you don't have to do anything. You just have to use the service. That's it. So these are the services, right, which are gaining popularity today. And we are going to look at each and every service. Now we are going to start with IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. And we are going to look at a few example of infrastructure as services as such. And then we'll move into platform as a service and then into something known as a software as a service. This is going to be how, or this is rather going to be the direction in which the class will progress. Okay. Now this is just a bare basic introduction of what IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS is. You don't have to really know about it because we'll any which ways go into each and every service and inspect what it is. Okay. Now you are there. Now you are decided that which service that you're going for. So you went ahead. You purchased an account with Azure. So you got a tenant ID under which you got a subscription. You have the right role, right? These are the three things you already have. So in my case, I have a tenant, right? So if I go into something known as an Azure Active Directory, I have something known as a tenant ID that is associated with me. So I have a tenant ID with me already. So how did I get a tenant ID? Very simple. As and when I registered myself with Azure, I got a tenant ID assigned to me, right? After a tenant ID, I said, okay, fine, this is like Amazon account. If you want to watch any videos like Prime videos and etc., you need something known as a subscription, right? That's when I went ahead and bought a subscription with Azure known as Pay As You Go. In your case, it would be something like a free trial subscription. So this is my Pay As You Go subscription. This is how it looks like right now. So I have a tenant, I have a subscription, and I also have a role. I am the administrator for this account, meaning I am the owner for this account. So now can I go ahead straight away start creating resources? Any question, any answers here? Yes, no, maybe? Or do I need anything else?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, no, maybe. Great. So yes, I can. But one thing out here is that let's do again a very simple comparison out here, okay? The tenant here, right? Let's say the tenant is the operating system in your laptop. Like whenever you switch on your laptop, you'll get that Windows logo, right? That's your tenant. Okay. So let's compare it to a physical world out here. So the tenant here, I'm comparing the tenant to something like an operating system, OS. This that comes into your laptop. The subscription here is the user account. Meaning as and when you basically on your laptop, right, you'll say, okay, fine, there are multiple accounts out here. You can log into any of the account by giving a password. And based upon what kind of an account, whether it's an administrative account or what account it is, you'll be basically having such kind of permissions. Now the question is that you have multiple data, you have like a lot amount of data, you have the operating system, you have a user account. Can you now take the data and directly store into your system? Can you now take the data and directly store into your system, or do you need anything else for that? Getting my question, guys? So you have a laptop, you have the operating system, you have a user account. Now, can you take the data and directly store it into your system, or do you need anything else apart from that? In application,
I think we require storage device, something like that.
storage device, yes, okay, fine. I have a hard drive. I have a hard drive already in my system. But if I want to store, right, I have something known as drives here, isn't it? Meaning,
Yes.
I have partitioned my hard drive into something known as a drives. So what is this? This is nothing but a simple name for my storage to save all my data so that I can identify it. In the same way, on the cloud, if I want to now start using the service, I have an OS, I have an operating system, and something that acts like a data drive is known as a resource group. Okay, this is the first thing what we will be looking at. This is known as a resource group. So you have now a tenant. So let's again put this diagram out here. So you now have a tenant, and under the tenant you have a subscription. You have an Azure subscription now. And under the Azure subscription, you will need to create something known as an resource group out here. So let me see. This is the symbol for an Azure resource group. Okay. So a resource group is nothing but a logical namespace to hold your resources. Okay. Nothing but a logical namespace to go ahead and hold your resources. So let's again put this out in. So under one subscription, the question here is that, guys, under one subscription, can you go ahead and create a single resource group or a multiple resource groups? Multiple, because you can technically have multiple drives in your computer, isn't it? So
Yes.
under one subscription, you can have multiple amount of resource groups. There is no proper number for it. Okay. And when you create a resource group, there is no charge for it, because resource group is nothing like a drive that can hold or that can give you a logical namespace out here. So how do you create a resource group in Azure? So I'm coming to Azure out here. So this is the Azure portal, what you'll people will be seeing it. You can either type in resource groups, you'll get something called resource groups out here, or you can go here directly on the front page. It'll give you something known as a resource group out here, or you have the three buttons out here, right? It's called show portal menu. In here as well, the first resource that you'll be seeing is known as a resource group. Okay, from anywhere you can just click on this icon, which is known as an Azure resource group. In here, just say create. As in when you say create, it's going to ask you certain details. The first and foremost detail it's going to ask you is that what is the subscription that you want to create this resource group into? Because again, when we said yesterday is that you can have multiple subscriptions under the same tenant, right? So the first thing it is asking you is that which subscription do you want me to go ahead and create this resource group in? So I'll say, okay, fine. I have only one subscription right now under my tenant, which is called a pay as you go. So please go ahead and create it under this particular subscription out here, right? After that, it's now going to ask me, what is the name of the resource group that you want to create, right? Because it's again, when you want to create a drive in your system, it needs to have a drive letter associated with it, right? Like D or E or F, something like that, right? In the same way, it's now asking me what is the name of the resource group that I want to create. Since this is the first resource group we are creating, I'll say first RG, first resource group. And now it's asking me, okay, fine. This is cloud right now. So whatever you create needs to be situated or needs to be placed on a server that is sitting in some data center, right? because that's what we saw, is that you're just renting out services, and now it's asking you out here is that which region of the world that you want to put the data center in, or would you want to basically put this resource group in. I can now say, okay, fine, there are so many regions on the offer, East US, East US 2, and a lot of regions on the offer. I'll select, okay, fine, a region like East US 2. Now, what is the factor? So what is the factor behind this selection, or what is the factor basically that influences me to select East US 2 or the region basically is that three things. I will consider always three things before selecting a data center out here. A is the distance between the data center and the point of my business. Meaning, let's say I am an application like Ola. Let's say my application is hosted out of a region like US. So I will always select a data center that is close to the point of my business. This is to make sure that I get the best service level agreement that is offered by Microsoft. A. But is that the only factor that I want to select? Let's say you are Ola again, okay, same application, but let's say you want to host your application out of something like Africa because you want the application to be hosted from there. But the factors that I'll also consider is something known as geographical stability and political stability. Two things. Is that the region of the data center what I select, because data center again guys, whatever data that you store is going to sit on that particular server, right? So it should be geographically stable, meaning there shouldn't be any earthquakes, tsunamis, natural disasters, and etc. So select a region which is geographically stable to having a political stability, that you shouldn't have frequent riots and all that can affect your data center, that can affect your services out here. Because when you're running a business, you'll have to actually see all these things out. So that's the reason, even if you look at the data centers that are situated across the world, right? You have data centers that are situated across the globe, but most of the data centers are concentrated in US and Europe, which are physically, which are politically, geographically more stable regions than the rest of the world. That's the reason most of the data centers or most of the regions in the list that you see are either Europe or US. That's how Azure, or that's how any cloud provider has situated themselves in. Okay. So I am selecting a region known as East US 2 now, because I am telling that, okay, my business is hosted out of the region known as East US 2. And these are the primary details, or these are the mandatory details that are required. How do I know these are mandatory? Because I have a red star here. See, besides subscription, I have something known as red star, meaning without selecting or without giving these options, I cannot go ahead and create something known as a resource group now, right? So I gave all these things. So I said my subscription is pay as you go, because that's the only subscription that I have. In your case, it would be free trial. In place of pay as you go, it would be something like a free trial, because you people will be using free trial subscriptions to start with. Then you can give any resource group name like test RG, first RG, second RG, anything as such. And then I'm selecting a region known as East US 2. You can select any data center of the around the world. Now I'm telling, okay, fine, this is done. So I'll say next. It's now telling me tags. So these are known as options out here. So firstly, you have something known as basics, where you went ahead and selected the name of the project, the name of the resource group, and the location. Secondly, you have something known as tags out here. Now, what exactly are tags out here is that, did you hear this term anywhere, guys? Tag, price tag, probably. When you go to shopping, right? You'll firstly see what is the price tag of it, meaning you will identify a product with its price tag. That's the basic mentality, right? You'll identify something like a product with a price tag of it. Now, I also said that you can have multiple resource groups under the same Azure subscription. Let's say, why do you want to have multiple resource group? Because you will have multiple teams and etc. Let's say I am a developer. I am creating this resource to hold all the resources of whatever my team requires. Now, if there are hundreds of resource groups, how do I identify mine? Right? Let's say I know the name of my resource group, But let's say if someone just looks at this particular resource group and wants to identify who this belongs to, right? For that identification purpose, you will have something known as tags. That's what it's telling, is that apply tags to your Azure resources to organize them by categories, right? Now I can say, I can add different tags out here telling that firstly, team is development, owner is Kiran at the gmail.com. In place of gmail.com, you'll have something like microsoft.com. So I am adding, meaning I can add multiple tags to a resource. And this is just for identification purpose. It is not a mandatory parameter. It's optional. You can give a tag, you may not give a tag, it's okay. This is just for identification purpose out here. Okay. And finally, review and create. And on the review and create page, right, you'll be having details like what is the name of the subscription that you have selected. This is like a billing invoice telling that what is the name of the subscription that you selected, what is the name of the resource group, what is the tags that you have assigned to it, and then it has an option to go ahead and create this out. And as and when I create it out, it will take a second and it will give me, or it will provision something known as a resource group in Azure. This is how you go ahead and create something known as a resource group in Azure. Okay. Now, if I want to create something like a second resource group, let's say come down out here and I will say second RG, same thing. So project name and etc. ECUS2. And let's say I'll say this is a team, and this team, right, is for QA, for the QA team or the testing team and etc. So I'll say testing. Owner is someone else. xyz@gmail.com. Let's put some ID out here. Create. So I have two resource groups right now. So this is getting created and I now have two resource groups. The first RG, the second RG. Now a couple of questions out here, guys, is that I have created an RG, which is a resource group right now. After creation of a resource group, can I go ahead and change the name of the resource group? No. Yes, the answer is right.
Yes.
You cannot change the name. You will not be able to change the name. So when you're creating a resource group, right, Azure is giving you something like mandatory parameters. That's what I told you, is that you have a star right out there. You won't be able to change those. So you cannot change. Guys, can you please go on mute if you're not talking? Okay, thank you. So you cannot change the name or you cannot change the location. So these are the parameters what you have to earlier think, meaning before creating of a resource group, you'll have to decide what is the name and what is the location that I'll have to create in. Now, can you change the tags? Yes. Tags can be changed at any point in time. For example, let's say if I come down and I say Kiran is not, let's say at Microsoft.com is not the owner, I can just say edit. It'll give me the tags page out here. I can add or edit the existing tags. Okay. All these parameters are optional and can be changed at any point in time. There is no charge for changing and etc. Okay. Now let's see this. Now yesterday we have talked about user control, right, or RBAC, role-based access control. Is that what kind of a role that you can assign to a user and etc. And we said there are three broad roles: owner, reader, and contributor. Now I am an owner. Okay, so that's established. I am an owner, and if I click on resource groups, I can go ahead, delete the resource group, create a new resource group. I can do whatever I want with this resource group out here. Apart from this, I can also go ahead and add users into my resource groups, or I can add users into my subscription, right? How can I add right now? Let's see that. So there are multiple places where you can add users. Okay. For example, let's come down to the diagram again. I can add a user at the tenant level. Okay, 3 levels is what I'm talking about. I can take a user, add him to the Azure tenant. Now what happens if I add a user to the Azure tenant? he'll be able to see all the subscriptions under the tenant with whatever role that I have assigned to him. So right now I'm just talking about one subscription, but let's say there are multiple subscriptions. If I add a user to the Azure tenant, which is, let's say, the parent, he can see all the subscriptions inside that particular tenant. Now I don't decide, or I don't want to add the user to the Azure tenant because I don't want so much of roles and etc. As I said yesterday, we can go ahead and add users to individual subscriptions. Okay, you can add a user to individual subscription as well. And if I add a user to a subscription, he will be able to see all the resource groups inside that subscription. Okay, he'll be able to see all the resource groups inside the subscription. Third is that, let's say now I have two resource groups right now. Okay, one is the first RG, which belongs to a development team. The second is the second RG, which belongs to the testing team. Now I want to make sure that the development team has access to both the resource groups as a contributor. Right? As a contributor, the development team needs to have access to first RG and the second RG. But the QA team should only have a read access on the second RG and should not see the first RG. This is what my criteria is. So I have two email IDs with me, which is rbackcontributor and rbackreader@gmail.com. So it's just a Gmail account out here that I do have. So what I'll be doing out here is that I'll just take this account and now I'll show how to add a user into your account. Okay. So I want to now add the user at the resource group level. So I'm going into, let's say, something known as a first RG. Well, let's do one thing. Since that there are two resource groups out here, I want the developer to have access on both the resource groups, right? So what I'll do is that I'll take a step back, come into my subscription, and I'll add the developer into the subscription as a contributor. So I'm coming into the subscription, and in the subscription, I have something known as access control. This is one of the most important options, is that access control, or in bracket it says IAM, identity and access management. So how do I add here is that I'll just go here, and here, right, there's a button called add. I'll just say add, and I'll say role assignment, and in here now it's asking me what is the role that I want to give to the user. This is where the role selection comes into picture. I'll say I want to give a contributor role to this particular user. I'll say contributor. I'll just click on this and I'll say next. It's telling, okay, fine, what is the user that you want to add? Okay, which user that you want to go ahead and add out here? I'll say select members. I want to add one specific user out here, and this is the email, right? Now it's telling me that, you know what, this user is not a part of your tenant, meaning this user was never added. Would you like to go ahead and send him an invitation to your tenant? I'll say yes, I want to do that. I'll say select. I'll say review and assign. And as and when I do it, the first thing that happens is that an invitation to that user will be sent across. The second thing is that the user will be added, or the user will be given a role assignment called as a contributor. Meaning now if I now go ahead and check something known as role assignments out here, I have a lot of roles out here, but this is what I'm interested in. I just went ahead and gave this user something known as a contributor access, right? So this is where it will get reflected, telling that, you know what, the user is a contributor, and the user is a contributor where? On the subscription. Meaning that's where I went ahead and gave the user an access here. Now let's do one thing. I have opened this, I have just Gmail basically opened out here. And if I refresh this screen, I have an invitation from Microsoft. This is a new email that just came in, and it's now telling me that, you know what, you have been invited to join an Azure tenant. Now this is what happens when you join an organization, telling that your administration team or your project manager, whoever, right, they will add you to that particular tenant, and you will have this email in your organization's Outlook telling that, okay, fine, you are invited to this particular Azure tenant. Do you want to go ahead and accept this invitation? And here, right, I can go ahead and say accept invitation. Now as and when I do that, it's telling you, okay, fine, you can now sign into this particular account. but you will have to first enter a password. Okay, you'll have to first enter a password. So I'll say okay, fine. It says, do you want to sign in? I'll say no. And it's now telling me that okay, fine, you know what, you are actually going into an Azure tenant, and this is a private Azure tenant. So please review all these terms and conditions and say accept. And as and when I accept, right, I will log in to the same Azure tenant, to the same Azure subscription as a contributor and not an owner. See, now I am in the Azure subscription right now. And if I now go into this particular subscription, as now I have logged in as this particular account, guys, this is what you'll have to observe. I logged in as rbackcontributor@gmail.com. This is where I logged in. And here, right, if you look at the access, it's telling me I have a specified access. I'm not an owner. But when I logged in with my actual account, this is my actual account, right? Which is something like this. This is an owner account. And if I look into this, right, I have an access known as an account administrator. That's the reason I went ahead and I was able to add a user. Now the question for y'all is that if I now log in with this particular account known as rbackcontributor@gmail.com, will I be able to see all the resource groups under this particular subscription? Yes, I can.
Yes,
I
sir.
should be able
Yes.
to see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's check this out.
Yes.
I'm able to see the resource groups under this particular subscription. Now let's say if I want to add another team member into this particular subscription with this particular email ID to a reader role. I want to give him, this is a QA guy, and I said that okay, fine. I want to make sure that this particular team member has an reader access just onto the second RG, and he just needs to see the second RG. That's it. Will I be able to add him as rbackcontributor@gmail.com? I shouldn't be able to do that, right? Because this is a contributor role. And the biggest difference between an owner and a contributor is that a contributor should not or will not be able to add other users. So let's try that also. So I'll go into the second RG, and inside the resource group also, I have something known as identity and access management, IAM, or access control, meaning this is the option that I have at every resource level. So if I say access management, and if I now go ahead and add, right, do you see this? It says role assignment is disabled. You do not have the access to go ahead and add a role assignment out here. Meaning, since you are not a owner, if I click this any number of times, it won't give me anything because I now am a contributor and I'm not a owner. This is one of the biggest difference out here. But can I create something inside this resource group? Can I add a resource group? Yes, you will be able to do it. Let's say, for example, if I come down out here and I say I just add something like a third RG. So I'll say validating, and it went ahead and created something known as a third RG. Now the question is, will I as an owner be able to see this third RG that is created? Yes,
Yes.
of course,
Yes.
yes. So if I do a couple of refreshes, now this will take some time, like about 5 minutes for the other user to, kind of see this out. If I give some time and kind of, log out and log in back again, I should be able to see the third RG as well. So what I'll do right now, see now I'm able to see the third RG as well that was created by the other user. So I'll just take a couple of seconds to get reflected, to get the portal getting refreshed and reflecting all these things out. So this third RG was added by that particular user who's a contributor out here. So a contributor can add resources, delete resources, but cannot add a user. Now let's do one thing. Let's also look at the reader rule. Let's see how a reader can log in.
Kiran, sorry to interrupt you. I have a question here. As an
Yeah,
owner,
please.
as the contributor has created the third RG there, so as an
Mhm.
owner, I will be able to see who has created the third RG or the resource groups.
Yes,
As
you will
an
be able
owner,
to see that. That's a good question. Is that as an owner, will I be able to see who's created it? Yes, you have something known as activity log out here, and this takes somewhere around 10 minutes to get reflected, and it will tell you who's created or who's initiated this particular resource creation. Okay, you'll have something known as an activity log out here, and this is something that we use a lot to see what is the timestamp, to see who's created what and everything. Does
Okay.
that answer your
So
question?
yes, thank you. So that means
Okay.
it is the owner who is able to see the activity log and not the contributor or the reader, or is it that
No,
all the three will be
the
able to see?
contributor will also be able to see, the reader will also be able to see it, but they cannot modify it. Reader cannot modify it, neither the owner can modify it. Like, this is all the audit logs, system
Logs? Yes,
generated.
yes, I,
So this is something
yeah,
that all the three can just look at it. Now if you see, right, if you look
yeah.
at this timestamp, I have update research group and I have an event initiated by rback contributor at the rate gmail.com, right? So this is how I
Okay.
will be able to see it, because this is the guy who
Okay.
went ahead and created that third RG.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Kiran.
Yeah.
But after some time,
Any more questions, guys? Okay.
I want to know the log file purge after some time, or
I'm sorry, Anis, but I'm not able to hear you at all. Like, I'm not able to get your voice at all.
actually I want to know.
Hmm.
So log file will be purged after some time. There is any time duration, or it will keep
Yes,
permanently?
it will take like about, normally when I observed, it will take like about 2 or 3 minutes for the logs to be generated. Like, after the event is initiated, it will take about 2 or 3 minutes for the logs to get initiated, or the logs to get reflected.
No, actually just today someone created. So I want to check after 1 week, after 2 week. Then it will be there.
Okay.
Either it.
Yes, you can filter those logs. The logs will be there for 180 days. The logs
Okay.
here, right? For example, the logs that you want to check. So here, right, I have a filter known as a timestamp. Here I have something like 6 hours, 24, 6 hours, 24 hours, 1 hour, and etc. I can do a custom for 180 days, like 6 months. I'll be able to go ahead back 6 months and I'll be able to see what are the logs. I can also download these logs as a CSV file so that I can keep it for my audit records and everything. Okay.
So as per a best practice, I think we need to export every month. If.
Not really. We can automate it. I mean, normally we don't export it at all. Like,
Mhm.
whatever happens, we don't go beyond a time period of 6 months until and unless it's very critical. And even then, you can go ahead and raise a ticket with Microsoft, express that you have this concern, and they'll be able to help you out to pull the logs which are greater than 6 months also.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So let's do one thing out here. So I am logged in as what? An owner, right? So what I'll do now is I'll go into my second RG, because the requirement right now is that I need to add a person as a reader to this resource group. So I'll say again identity and access management, but this time the identity and access management that I'm doing is at what? The resource group level. Earlier it was what? At a subscription level. So if I added a subscription, the user will be able to see everything inside that particular subscription, meaning all the resource groups out here. So what I'm going to do is I'll say add role assignment, and I'll say this is a reader role, not a contributor, it's a reader role. I'll say next, and I'll say select members. And in here, I'll just again go ahead, take this ID, paste it in here. This member is again not a part of my tenant. I'll just say add, select, review, and assign. Now it's assigned a role assignment. It's saying the user has been invited, and now it's adding that particular user to my Azure tenant or to the Azure resource group, which is the second RG, as a reader. Now let's log in like that particular user and see what he's able to see. Okay. So let's go back into, let's say, Google Chrome browser. I'll just sign out from this particular account so that I can sign back in as a different account. I'll say use another account. I'll just enter the password to this particular account. I'll say confirm. And here am I. And now it says, you know what? You again have, let's say, something like the Microsoft invitation. This user will also do the same thing, accept invitation. And it says, yes, switch account. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's accept this invitation once again. Now I'll say, give the password. I'll say no. Now it's again asking the same thing, review the permissions and etc. I'll say accept. Now when this user logs in, what should he be able to see, guys? Only that particular resource group out there, right? So let's log in as this particular account. So I'm again logged into the same subscription to the same tenant. If I now click on the resource groups out here, I am only able to see the second RG. Now will I be able to delete this RG? Ideally no, right? So let's come down here. Let's initiate a delete. And it gave me an error message telling that, you know what, you do not have the proper authority to go ahead and delete this out because you are just a reader. So you cannot go ahead and delete, or you cannot go ahead and manage resources. You can only see the resources that you are allocated to. But if I just turn the scenario around, and if I now go ahead and add this user as a reader on the subscription, what all should he be able to see? First RG, second RG, third RG, all the resource groups under that particular subscription. He should be able to read all that stuff. Okay. This is how you go ahead and assign RBACs. And this is how RBACs, or this is how role-based access control will be changing from an owner to a contributor, and from a contributor to a reader. This is how it is, guys. So any questions that I can take for this particular session? Anything? Any questions that
Kiran,
you all have?
yes, actually, like if we have given contributor access 50 users, right?
I'm sorry, I
So
didn't get you.
if we have given 50 user contributor access,
Okay.
someone granted access one user, but without any permission, like, but it is not
Mhm.
so. Where we can check who added or who removed from the contributor access as a log file.
So if
Is
I
there
want to
anything?
check that, right? So I'll have to just go into my subscription and I'll have to see the identity and access management out here. Or I can also do this, sorry, I can see the activity log out here, not the identity and access management. I'll be able to see the activity log out here. And after, let's say, somewhere around some couple of minutes, you will be able to see all the activities that I've done on this particular subscription.
All right.
Now, do you see now? It's there. My name is there out here. And I have something known as a create role assignment out here. And in here, if I go into detail, now it's telling shared with RBAC reader, resource group second RG. And this is a reader permission that I went ahead and added. This is the rule that I've added. So it's telling who added it, meaning I added it. At what time did I add it? Somewhere around 7:46 plus 5:30 Indian Standard Time. So, and then finally it said shared with rbackreader@gmail.com. This is the user who's got added, and the user has a role known as reader.
Yeah.
And the resource what he's added is to the second RG out here. Right? This is how I'll be able to see all these things out.
Yes. All right.
So
Sir,
anything that you want to,
sir,
yeah, please go ahead.
sir, sir, simply RBAC's going to say that it's going to segregate the duties to what the person limited to usage, like that.
Exactly. That's correct. It's going to divide the duties and the responsibilities, meaning
How
roles
much
that
they
are
need, how
there.
much their access they need.
That's
Mm.
correct.
So, thank you.
You can add multiple users at the same time. Yes, you can do that.
So I have one question.
Hmm.
Suppose if we have for one resource group, if we have one user to which we have given a contributor role, okay,
Okay.
and for the same resource group, if we again given that same user as a reader role, okay, so
Okay.
which will be considered?
So the contributor will be considered. Always the role assignment comes from, I mean, the concept is called inheritance, meaning the role that has a higher permission or a higher privilege will proceed over the role that will have a lower privilege. Meaning same thing, I went ahead and added this particular user as a contributor to this particular resource group. He'll be able to delete it out because now he's a contributor to it. So the role that has a better privilege will always take a precedence.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, any more questions with this, guys? So what I want you all to do today is, please make sure that you have an Azure subscription firstly. Just create a couple of email IDs, okay, like, a couple of Gmail IDs and etc. Try to add them as a reader, as an owner, as a contributor at the subscription level, at the resource group level and etc. and see how the permissions are coming through. Okay. This is an important exercise to understand how the role management is actually, going ahead and being done. Okay, guys. So this is your assignment. And from tomorrow, we are going to look at the core services of Azure. These are just, let's say, the basic introduction of it, that what Azure is and what resource groups are, etc. Now, from tomorrow, we are going to start with the very core services of Azure, and we'll start with something known as a storage. Okay. We'll start with storage and we'll see something like IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS services that are offered by Azure. Okay. Okay, guys, if there are no further questions, then thank you. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.